Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During each show, we talk with an everyday person, someone just like you and me, and they typically are living their best life, using some strategies for success. Then they share those strategies with us during the show. Today's guest is Mona Fodor, and Mona and I have known each other for years. She's an old friend, right, Mona?
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And by old friend, I'm not talking age, you know that.
Right,
I'm talking length of the friendship.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Mona and I worked together in a bank years ago.
You actually hired me.
I did hire you. Surprising as that might be. And we'll have to ask how that happened, by the way. Anyway, Mona is a serial entrepreneur. Not only did she work for the bank, she started a catering business. She had a chocolate company, and I always get this wrong, but I'm going to cheat and look. My Naughty Nibbles.
Yes.
So one can imagine what that would entail. And they would be right.
Yes.
Right? And you have done a bunch of training after you left the bank. You started a bookstore. Books, Nooks, and Nibbles. Again, that Nibbles line is in there. So tell us, fill in all the gaps. I mean, I've just kind of hit the high points, but what's the backstory?
The backstory is originally when I started working at the bank, I was looking for a job. My son was 3 years old. I had been through a divorce. And so what happened at that point is when I got my job, I thought, well, I'm the sole support. So I needed consistency in my employment. I needed to have sick days, things of that nature. So I knew it was incumbent upon me to be successful in one form or another. I enjoyed my time at the bank. I learned a lot. There were a lot of very helpful people that encouraged my career. So it went up to branch management at one point. And so I basically had been with the bank close to 30 years. Not just that one bank, but several banks. So upon doing that, but during that time period, I like to do other things. And even though I didn't have the time to devote to other things, I had little things I liked to do that were totally different from banking, and that being chocolate. I found it was a very diverse thing. I could make money on the side with it, and I enjoyed doing it. And like I said, it was totally different from banking, so it got me away from that same thing every day. When I left banking is when I decided to get into a book and gift store. So I did not have enough to do the business on my own, so I had a girl that was a friend of mine, and we partnered up, and she was part of the financial part, and so we shared that with us, with the business. When we did that, it went very well. It was called Books, Nooks, and Nibbles, like you said. And we did not only books, we did new books, used books. We did little tea and wine events there. We had author book signings. And then besides that, we also got into some of the holistic healing, which to me is near and dear to my heart because I feel like we have too many drugs in society anyway. Yes, some are helpful, but some just cause a repetition of you having to take more drugs. So I was into crystals and massage and all that. So we eventually turned
Reiki, as I recall.
And so we turned the business part of that into that as well. So on the whole, I enjoyed doing that. We had a situation like anybody who thinks they're going to go into business and not have issues, sadly mistaken. And I learned the hard way. But my partner became extremely ill and almost died. And I continued with the business for a few years after that. However, in the bank, we have a saying, you don't throw good money after bad. So after a while, I had closed that business just because I did not want to continue throwing money into it. Would I do business again? Yes, absolutely, because I like the people contact, and I think you have to be a people person if you're going to have some type of retail business. You know, if you're just in an office and you're doing warehouse work, no, totally different. But I felt the need to always have the confidence of my job at the bank with the ability to do other things on the side. And that's kind of what I did my whole time, my whole career. For me, it was a way of survival. You know, I didn't have another income, so I had to rely on that. Also, when I was in the bank, I did go back to school, get my paralegal degree, and running the candy business. So I was kind of varied. I did a lot of different things that I thoroughly enjoyed. And in a way, it was helpful for me to see where I wanted to be on the career spectrum and where I didn't want to be. So I did spend time at Petiti's doing flowers, landscaping, that kind of thing, merchandising. So while I thoroughly enjoyed that, it got to be physically not okay for me, so that's why I changed. And actually now, since I've been retired, I'm actually back in banking.
So explain that to me.
I wanted something where I could earn money on the side. I mean, I still get Social Security, so I wanted money on the side, but I didn't want a full-time job. I still wanted to pursue my personal interests that I enjoy, which is like animals, artwork, that kind of thing, and the outdoors. So, yeah, so that's kind of it. It's been a wild ride, I can tell you.
So when we were talking earlier, you were telling me how life on the teller line and life in the branches has changed.
Immensely, immensely. In the old days, like for example, we used to cash checks, do all that, and that work was processed at a separate center. Well, now it's all digital. The work never leaves the branch. It stays in the vault, and it's shredded after so many days. So your checks never go anyplace, really. It's all on the computer system, which is great. The other difference is we used to train in the old days as far as we would go to a facility that the bank owned, and they would train you from the ground up, like teller-wise, new accounts, loans, that kind of thing. So you were in a group setting, which I really like better because in the group setting, you are able to bounce ideas off people. But now, it's all online. So while I enjoy that, it's not as interactive. And for me personally, what I enjoy in life and work is dealing with customers and dealing with people, because you have to be able to talk to people, you know, and that's how you learn about things that you like, things that you don't like, is by talking to different people. I say if you want to get in a business, you simply involve yourself in other things. You involve yourself in chamber, Lions Club, whatever it is, and you gain access to people that do other types of jobs or careers. And if you're unsure what you want to do, that's a place to ask your questions and kind of get a springboard into something else. So, yeah, it's up to you, I think. People need to realize that, yes, you can have a degree, but you have to participate. You have to be willing to either step up to the plate yourself or jump in with both feet. So I've been a jump in with both feet person. So.
Well, yeah, you always have been. So how do you think generationally things have changed? And I hear this all the time, that our generation, and we're pretty close in age, is a face-to-face,
Yeah.
eye contact,
Yes.
talk with me.
Right.
as opposed to the younger generation who do everything by text.
Online, yes. I would say that the younger generation, even my son, who is very accomplished scientifically, mathematically, he can do anything, he's an aerospace engineer, but he was raised on the computer and with the texting and everything.
So
and
it's your fault.
It is my fault. No, it is, it is modern science anyway. For him, I don't think he's as well-rounded. He has said to me many times, you talk to everybody. I don't know how you can talk to anybody. And I told him, I said, the only way you learn about other people is to ask them about themselves. You can find out so much. If somebody doesn't want to talk to you, that's fine, but just move on. You have to be persistent, and you have to enjoy what you're doing. And how you find that out is by meeting other people, knowing what they do, and finding out how they accomplished what they did, which is what your show does too. So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So along the way, you've also been a caller for square dancing.
Oh yeah, that was when I had youth and a voice. So yeah, I did that for a lot of years. I was very involved in 4-H growing up, which kind of was a springboard to me dealing with people. I mean, I did square dance calling. I had horses, so I did the 4-H thing, and I taught kids how to ride, things like that. So I had a lot of varied interests, even as a youth. And my mother always gave me some good advice. Whenever you start working for somebody, make yourself invaluable. Nowadays, young people, when they start work, are like, well, I have my degree. That wasn't in my job description. Well, you know, we all have to pay our dues one way or another. And so kids of this generation need to understand that they need to pay their dues. And it's not going to be easy, and you're not going to start out, like, say, for example, an attorney is not going to start out making $100,000 right out of school.
But how do you get that point across to them? Because that seems to be
that is
the
a sticking
mindset,
point.
And with the helicopter parents and the
Yes.
the attendance trophies,
Yes.
if you will,
Well,
which
is
bother me to
mind-boggling.
pieces.
I really think that some of that needs to be done in our business classes and schools, as well as at home. The problem you have now is you have a disconnect at home. Now, I was not a stay-at-home mom all the time. I could not afford to do that. However, I still had conversation with my son. In fact, when he got his first job, he said, well, I'll just throw on a pair of jeans and go in. I said, no, you won't. I said, you'll put on a suit. He's like, but Mom, I said, son, you want to dress for the job you want. I said, I know that's old-fashioned, but I said, people learn to respect you that way. And if you don't have respect, whether you're the parent or the job you're working at, you don't really have anything. So I think that comes across in your conversations with your children. You know, I never had a problem with him because he knew I worked at the bank. He knew what I did, you know. And then at some point he became a boss when he started working at NASA. And so we had the management conversations. So, you know, how you deal with people with certain things. And it was very enlightening because he would come back and ask me questions, which I thought, you know, how when your kids grow up, they go, oh, they don't know anything, they're my parent. Well, unfortunately, mine didn't do that, or fortunately.
Unfortunately,
so, yeah.
I would say, yeah.
So I was always lucky, and he's very accomplished, and I'm very proud of him. So for me, life is short. You need to do what you want to do. Don't wait till you're 90 to decide you want to, you know, jump off the bridge or do something. You have to make your way. You can't always rely on somebody else to do it. As a single mom, I know that. You know, I spent 15 years without a partner. So for me, being a single mom meant that I had to survive and I had to take care of another person. Now, granted, a lot of what I did, I waited till my son graduated high school so that I felt more comfortable in letting go of some of his care in order to maintain my pursuits. So, and I did that. So, but yeah, I enjoy life. I think it's important to be positive in life. Even when life hands you crap, you kind of have to go with it, and this too shall pass.
Well, and doesn't that also kind of fit with the crystals and the oils and the alternative medicines?
Yes, yes.
That idea of being positive, and,
Yes.
and that all ties together.
Yes, you can choose. I firmly believe you can choose to walk around, I call it poopy, or you can get a hold of yourself, put a smile on your face, and interact with people. And you'll get farther along, and you'll actually find yourself feeling better when you do that. So, I mean, it's the same theory like when you're really sick. If you stay home and you're all huddled up all the time, granted that there's a reason for that, but if you can put your clothes on, dress yourself up, and get to work, you feel better just by having done all that. So I think positivity, no matter what you're doing, you know, is a glass half full, is a glass half empty? That's up to you. And that positive will carry forward. I've always said, even in hiring people, when I've been a boss, I would rather hire somebody with a good personality that can talk to people than someone who is book smart. Because many times the book smart people are just so involved in what they're doing, they don't know how to communicate. And that's what we're finding with our youth now. I see many people come in and they don't know how to talk to somebody. Oh, I'm afraid of sales. Well, they're not really afraid of sales. What they're afraid of is talking to somebody. You know, they're afraid to like go out there and say, oh, well, what about this? Would you like that? You know, and you can't be afraid to hear no, because you're going to hear no.
Absolutely.
So, and that's just the way it is. And you have to move on from that and keep your focus to what you want to do. But also love yourself at the same time. You know, you have to be able to take care of yourself, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything, really. So, and that's important.
Oh my gosh, words of wisdom. And we're not even to the strategies yet.
I know, scary, isn't it? Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about strategies for success. You and I have talked, and obviously through the years have talked lots.
Lots, right.
And you have always been a believer in lifelong learning. So
Yes.
one of your strategies is keep learning and gaining knowledge.
Right.
So talk more about that. I mean, that's a pretty simple statement, but it involves
it's
a whole
simple.
lot.
It does involve a whole lot. It goes back to what my mom taught me. If you go to work for someone or you're trying to do something, number one, be the best you can be. Learn what they're willing to teach you. You know, say I come in someplace and I want to be a teller. Okay. Well, say one day they say, well, do you want to step up and do some new accounts? Well, yeah, don't be afraid to take that step, because everything you learn makes you more invaluable to the employer. And that's just a smart way to be with everything. You know, even though you start a business and you have certain things you do, like I did with the store. You know, I was just doing books and gifts. And then I gradually expanded on what retail was telling me they wanted. So you have to listen, and you have to educate yourself constantly. You know, what's out there that I can do better?
So having learned all that and continually learning about trends and that kind of thing, in the store, you said you'd do a store again. What would be the same and what would be different?
What I have found in my banking career is that many people are good at making widgets, but they don't understand the finance part of it. And that's where they get tripped up. I got tripped up because I didn't plan in my business for health issues of the partners. So for me, the next time I would make sure that we have like insurance, you know, for certain things. I would make sure there was more involvement, you know, get more buy-in from the partner, because I was pretty much carrying it by myself for the most part, and that's the everyday operations. So I was doing operations, doing finance, doing other management of a couple employees that I had, and it was a big drain. So if I did it again, I would maybe do a similar business, but have my ducks in a row a little better next time.
Well, it's often said that the back end, like you talked about, the financial, but also the HR portion,
Yes.
the people portion.
And people forget about that,
Yeah.
you know. And my best thing I can say about that is make sure if you're doing a business that you have all your legal ends, you know, signed and sealed. Don't wait for them to come back and say, well, you know, you didn't do this and I want my share of this. And, you know, you got to have it all spelled out ahead of time.
Well, the other thing too in the HR field is, and you've alluded to this, make sure you have a culture match, you know, people-wise, because you can always train a relatively intelligent person. And they're out there, but you can't do the personality.
My favorite saying is hire the smile and train the skill. I can train a monkey to run a teller window, but I can't train them to be nice to people. You know, and in retail anyway, that's something that you absolutely need. You need that connection with people, and even with their coworkers, you need that.
Right.
You know, I've heard many people over my years say, well, but that's not my job. That's not my job description. Da, da, da. Well, to me, if I'm paying you money, it's in your job description. So, as long as I'm not doing anything illegal or immoral.
At one point, I think we had job descriptions that said
Other related duties as assigned, yes.
or as needed.
Yes.
And so, yeah. Number two, if you don't ask, you don't deserve to get.
Yes, that was one of the big things that stuck with me in a sales training, retail sales training I had probably 20 years ago. And it speaks volumes. If you're going to sit and wait for someone to ask you to start a business, ask you to better yourself, that's not going to happen. So put yourself where people are. Put yourself in chamber. Put yourself in even community things. Get yourself where you need to be so that you can learn, number one, and you put yourself with people that connect you to do what you want to do. You know, sitting there dreaming about it all day is not getting it done. So if you don't ask, you're not going to get. Same way.
So I should stop sitting around waiting for the lottery check to...
Well, me, it's the Publishers Clearinghouse fan. So.
Okay, we're on the same page there. Number three is don't be afraid of failure. It's only temporary. What do you mean by that?
For many years, I spent time, and this again was when I just had my son and I was starting out in banking. I was afraid to take on new challenges. And I found the more I did and the more I accomplished, it gave me confidence. And that confidence continues on. You need that confidence to propel yourself to other things that you may want to do. So, you know, you gotta keep on going. I feel that we're like cars. If we stop moving and stop learning, we seize up. And then we're really no good to anybody, even ourselves. So.
Okay. So how are you going to tie all of this together? You know, your backstory, your strategies for success, what you're doing now. What does your future look like? Tie that all together.
My future is I've put myself in a position where I can move on and fully retire and change my structure to where I eventually want to have another business. I will not want to have a big business, obviously. I don't need that. But I like my involvement in community and with people. And so for me, I'm getting myself to a place where I need to be so I can actually retire. So I know that sounds awful to me, but I really don't know how to retire.
I was going to say, I've never known you to stop. And as you
Stop,
say,
yeah.
you don't want to stop.
Right, right.
Because then
Because
you're
it
going to
keeps the
stop.
brain cells going.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah. And life is short, you know. I say at this point in my life, it's like I want to take care of myself so that I can see my grandchildren, live a more relaxed life, do what I want to do when I want to do it, not be tied to like, oh, you have to be in at work at like 8 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. So, but yet I like to dabble still. So for me, I need that little extra monetary cushion to keep myself going.
So you said you might do something like books, Nooks and Nibbles again. Would you do something like Minority Nibbles, or is that politically not correct anymore? Or?
It's not politically correct, but there's a need for it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, there are still people with a great sense of humor, even though it's naughty. And people tend to say they don't like something, but give me 10. Okay, so while on one hand they're saying, no, I don't want that, at the same time they're saying, but I really don't want to tell anybody, so give me more. Be true to yourself. That's all I have to say about that. You know, I still continue to make things for people, you know, not as much as I did before. I would like to have a chocolate shop. However, there's a lot more goes into that than even the bookstore, because then you're dealing with the local government and health codes, all that. So you have to be really well balanced financially to take that on. Just ask any restaurant owner now.
For sure.
You know, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so yeah, there's so many things that I could do. I also have a love for animals, and I thought about having a rescue at some point. So bring out my country girl again.
Right, kind of full circle.
Full circle, yes.
Yeah, for
Everything's cyclical.
Yeah.
And that's why I said failure is only temporary. Eventually something will change. And quite frankly, spiritually, I feel that God puts you where you're supposed to be. We may not always like it, but that doesn't mean that it's not meant to be. So, you know, and it's dealing with life with a smile.
What a great way to end the show. Deal with life with a smile.
Right.
Mona, thank you so much.
And
this
thank you for having me.
Unbelievably
I enjoyed
great.
catching up, yes.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll continue to stay in contact.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug.